Welcome, friends of the Greasy Shop Rag. Today we're going to take a look at a Husqvarna T435 top panel chainsaw. Customer complaint is that it doesn't start very easily, and if it does start, it just bogs and it's low on power. So we're looking in the fuel tank here, and I didn't see any debris or water in the tank. We're going to fish the filter out and take a look. And it looks like a brand new filter. I don't know if the customer put this on here in response to the problem or what the deal is. I should probably mention that this would have been a good time to pressure test that fuel line. Not sure why I didn't do it in this video. It's usually part of my normal routine. So let's try and start this thing up and see what it does. Well, here's your first clue as to where the problem is, or what the problem is. Look how long it takes for that primer bulb to return to shape. That means it's sucking really hard and not moving any fuel. So a lot of people think that the primer, floods the carb by pushing fuel in it. It works just the opposite. The primer bulb sucks fuel from the tank through the carburetor to the primer bulb and back to tank. So the suction effect of the primer, oh look at that, it finally popped. There was a lot of restriction there. So the suction action pulls fuel through the carburetor. And if there's something blocked up, whether it be the filter, the fuel line, or the micro screen in the carb, or Kink's fuel line, something like that, those would all make the primer bulb act that way. So I'm fumbling around trying to get the throttle linkage off of here. And when I put it back together, you'll see the proper way to do this. So let's pop this fuel line off. It doesn't want to pull on its own. We'll just hit it with a screwdriver, break it loose. So look at this. That thing flows fuel just fine. I'm guessing our problem is inside the carburetor. And as soon as that primer bulb wouldn't return, I pretty much knew what it was. Here I'm just looking at the intake boot, because in the past I have seen some intake boots that were damaged from people torquing on the saw too hard and stretching the anti-vibe springs and then stretching on that boot. Sometimes it will actually unseat from underneath the carburetor. So let's open this thing up, see what we got going on. First, they're going to remove the pump side cover from the carburetor. Here's our gasket and our fuel pump diaphragm. And here's our micro screen inside the carb. This is the last line of defense for keeping schmutz out of the fine passages of your carb. And you see how dark it is? That is some type of contamination. There's a fine layer of something on there. I don't know what. Could very well be a fuel line that's deteriorating. And in fact, that's a very good possibility. But it also kind of looked like a scum, like maybe something in the fuel. Maybe it's an ethanol related problem. You can see the filter doesn't really look like it's got debris from a deteriorating hose, but it definitely had a restriction. I wish I knew what that scum was from. I don't remember having that scum before we had corn in our fuel, but I'm just guessing here. I don't know. So we put a new micro screen in this carburetor, and now we're going to put new gaskets in it. So the kits come with multiple choices of gaskets, And it's just a matter of matching the new ones to the old ones. You can see on these two gaskets here that one's got a hole in it or the other one doesn't have a hole in it. And we look at our original and it's got a hole or not? Let's see. It does. So we'll get rid of the other one so we don't mix them up. So the pump diaphragm goes down against the carburetor first, and then the paper gasket on top of it, and then the pump cover. And the pump cover incorporates the idle speed screw. So if you hold the throttle plate open a little bit, it won't be touching the idle speed screw while you're trying to line the cover up. It just makes it a little easier not to disturb the gaskets while you're getting things lined up. So now this secondary air valve that's on here has to come off so I can access the metering diaphragm. And there's a bracket that holds it in place. Single screw here to remove it. And we'll swing it out of the way. And then our bracket is just attached to our pump metering diaphragm plate screws. That's a mouthful. So we take the 4 screws like we normally would. It's just that 2 of them are passing through this bracket. As far as I can remember, this is kind of unique to the T435. Can't think of another model that's set up like this. Sometimes there's a plate that runs all the way down the front of the carb, but not in this case. So there's our metering diaphragm. It's not bad. It was not a contributing factor. But usually when I got a carb opened up, I like to replace the gaskets anyway. The kit comes with a new needle, and so we're going to replace that as well. But you're going to see that there's a lot of cuts in the video coming up here. We got our old needle out. And we got parts flying. That was part of the tweezers. There's our old needle.
Cripes.
So I like to clean the new needle, the tip of it, because if it's a rubber tip, they usually got some kind of preservative or something on there. Sometimes that can actually be a hindrance if you don't clean it off. So here's where you're going to see a few cuts. It's because I'm just having one of them fumbly finger days at work. My fingers just felt like 10 sausages. I don't know. So I probably made 3 attempts to put that stupid metering lever and needle in there. And they're pretty small on this carburetor. But we got her done. The metering lever height should be set at the bottom of that lowest part of the bowl there. Should be flush with it. And then we put our paper gasket down first and then our metering diaphragm. Now we need our cover. Where is it? There it is. So there's our cover. And our air valve. We're just kind of getting things lined up and making sure we got it the right way. It's not one of those things that, you know, like I said, it's kind of unique to this saw, so you don't see them as often as some other ones. You just got to make sure you're putting it together right. We'll get these screws tightened down. And I didn't do it in this video, but I have started to use Loctite on this single screw right here. I saw one unit come through with that screw missing. So now I start to put Loctite on them. Now we just got to get things oriented a little bit here. We'll get our fuel line put on the carburetor. You know, we know the choke goes to this side. And that secondary air valve goes down. But this screw, if I take it out of the handle, it allows enough travel of that throttle rod to make it easier to connect and manipulate this carb into the right position. If I would have taken that screw out when I took the carb apart, it would have been a little bit easier for me. So we're just getting things lined up, making sure our fuel line isn't kinked or caught behind the carburetor. Yeah, my hands were bothering me. I don't know what was going on there that day. There we go. Now it looks decent. It didn't really look like it was sitting flush before. So there's going to be 3 screws. Don't forget this one down on the bottom here. I think in a past video I may have shown you where I forgot to put that screw in. And I'm using an impact driver here, but you can see I'm going really slow. If you're not comfortable with your impact driver, definitely do it by hand. So now we're going to prime it. What do we got? Look how nice that primer bulb works now. There's no restriction in that micro screen anymore, and it's able to easily pull fuel from the tank through the carburetor into the primer bulb and back to the tank. We'll push our air filter back on, and then we're going to give this thing a test start and see if it runs. And if it does run, then that's all I'm going to have for you on the Husqvarna T435 top panel chainsaw. It just didn't want to run. Thanks for watching. Later.